They built a world where you're invisible, but somehow you're all they can see. Listen closely. Do you hear that? That's the sound of their system breaking. Click, click, click. They're frantically typing your name into search bars at 3 o'clock a.m., scrolling through databases that don't contain you, running algorithms that can't compute you. And the beautiful irony, the harder they search, the more invisible you become. But here's what's driving them absolutely insane. You're not hiding from them. You're hiding in plain sight. You're the ghost in their machine, the error in their code, the question their artificial intelligence can't answer. You see, they built this magnificent system, this beautiful, intricate web of control. Social security numbers, credit scores, LinkedIn profiles, Instagram followers, all designed to categorize every soul on this spinning rock. But you, oh, you magnificent creature, you slid through the cracks. Not because you're broken, not because you're lost, but because you're operating on a frequency they never programmed their machines to detect. You're the dark matter of their social universe, invisible to their instruments, but affecting everything around you. Every night when the city sleeps and the screens go dark, they lie awake thinking about you, the person who doesn't need their validation, the one who doesn't play by their rules, the ghost who somehow manages to haunt every conversation, every decision, every moment of doubt they experience. They built monuments to mediocrity, temples to conformity, altars to approval, and you walk past all of it like it's invisible, because to you it is. Here's what's beautiful about being a ghost. You can walk through walls. While they're banging their heads against barriers, you're already on the other side. While they're waiting for permission, you're already moving. While they're asking, "Am I allowed?" you're asking, "What's stopping me?" Nothing, because their system can't restrict what it can't recognize. Their rules can't bind what they can't define. They wake up every morning and check their notifications, refresh their feeds, count their likes, measure their worth in metrics created by strangers. But you wake up knowing something they've forgotten, that your existence doesn't require their acknowledgement. Your value doesn't need their validation. Your power doesn't depend on their recognition. You're not invisible because you're weak. You're invisible because you're free. Tonight, we're going to shatter the biggest lie they ever told you. The lie that says if you're not officially recognized, you don't matter. If you're not in their system, you don't exist. If you're not playing their game, you're not winning. But here's the twisted truth they never want you to discover. The moment you stop trying to exist in their world is the moment you become absolutely unstoppable in your own. The most powerful people in history were never the ones holding the crown. They were the ones whispering in the king's ear, "Ah, now we're getting to the delicious part." The beautiful twisted paradox that makes their heads spin like broken carnival rides. Picture this. Every king you've ever heard of, every emperor, every president, they're just the face on the coin, the real power, the real control. It's always been in the shadows. The puppet master never takes a bow. The architect never poses for photos in front of their building. The screenwriter never steps onto the red carpet. But without them, without these invisible forces, the whole damn show collapses. You've been doing it wrong your entire life, haven't you? Begging for their spotlight, desperate for their applause, crawling on your belly for their approval like a trained seal performing for rotten fish. You've been trying so hard to exist in their little boxes, their categories, their systems, that you forgot the most important truth of all. The moment you stop trying to fit in is the moment you start standing out. The moment you stop playing by their rules is the moment you become absolutely, undeniably, systematically unstoppable. Here's what's driving them absolutely mad. They can't control what they can't see. They can't manipulate what they can't. They can't destroy what they can't define. You've become their greatest nightmare. A variable they can't calculate. An equation they can't solve. A code they can't crack. While they're busy fighting over the throne, you've already taken over the kingdom. While they're arguing about who gets to wear the crown, you've become the voice that tells the crown what to think. The puppet master pulls the strings, but nobody knows the puppet master's name. The architect designs the building, but nobody remembers who drew the blueprints. The writer creates the story, but the characters get all the fame. And you know what? That's exactly where the real power lives. In the space between recognition and influence, in the gap between visibility and control, you don't need them to see you. You need them to feel you. And oh, they feel you. All right? Every decision they make, every move they consider, there you are whispering in their subconscious. Stop trying to be the king. Stop begging for the crown. Stop begging for their approval, because here's the secret they never taught you in school. The real rulers of this world are invisible. They operate in frequencies the common mind can't detect. They influence without commanding. They control without calm. They dominate without being seen. And the most beautiful part, the less visible you become, the more powerful you actually are. Your power doesn't come from their recognition. It comes from your ability to operate completely outside their comprehension. While they're looking for you in their databases, you're already 3 steps ahead in dimensions they don't even know exist. You're not invisible because you're hiding. You're invisible because you're hiding. It transcended their entire understanding of what power actually looks like. Live re-entry in the minds of people who claim they've never met you. Oh, this is where it gets deliciously twisted. Walk into any room, any coffee shop, any meeting, any party where you know absolutely nobody. Watch what happens. It's like watching dominoes fall in slow motion. First, there's the subtle shift in energy. Then the conversations pause for just a microsecond too long. Then their bodies unconsciously adjust. Straightening spines, fixing hair, checking phones like they're suddenly important. You haven't said a word. You haven't done anything. You're simply present. And that presence rewrites the entire DNA of the space. They'll spend the next 3 days thinking about you. Not because you tried to impress them, not because you performed some grand gesture, but because you carried yourself like someone who doesn't need their approval. And that terrifies them more than any threat ever could. You've become their obsession without even trying. You're living rent-free in minds that claim they've never met you, taking up permanent residence in headspace they don't even know they've given you. It's beautiful. It's twisted. It's absolutely perfect. Here's what's happening in their psychological circus. They're trying to solve you like a puzzle with missing pieces. They're creating entire narratives about who you are, what you want, where you came from. They'll spend more mental energy trying to figure you out than they spend on their own dreams. And the most delicious part, every story they create about you makes you more powerful. Every theory they develop gives you more influence. Every moment they spend thinking about you is a moment they're not thinking about themselves. Watch their body language when you're around. Really watch it. Shoulders back, chin up, voice slightly deeper. Suddenly everyone's a little more interesting, a little more charismatic, a little more performative. They don't even realize they're doing it. But you become their mirror, their standard, their measuring stick for what presence actually looks like. They're not reacting to what you do. They're reacting to what you represent. And what you represent is everything they wish they could be, but are too terrified to become. You know what the beautiful irony is? They claim they don't know you. They swear they've never met you. They'll tell anyone who listens that you're just another stranger. But late at night, when they're alone with their thoughts, when they're making their biggest decisions, when they're standing in front of their mirror, there you are, the ghost in their reflection, the voice in their head, asking, What would someone with real presence do? You've become their internal compass, their psychological true north. They're desperately trying to figure out their role in your story, not realizing that you're not casting anyone. You're not directing their performance. You're not writing their lines. You're simply being so authentically, unapologetically yourself that everyone else becomes a supporting character in the movie of your existence. In the most twisted part, the less you try to be their main character, the more you become exactly that. While they're busy performing for an audience, you're rewriting the script. Look at them scrambling like ants after someone kicked their hill, refreshing their feeds every 30 seconds, counting likes like prayer beads, measuring their self-worth in hearts and thumbs ups from strangers who wouldn't wow across the street to help them. They've turned their entire existence into a performance, and the most pathetic part, they don't even know who they're performing for anymore. Meanwhile, you've discovered something absolutely revolutionary, the ultimate cheat code that breaks their entire system, strategic invisibility. While they're exhausting themselves, begging for validation, you're operating in the shadows where real power lives. They're slaves to their metrics, prisoners of their own perception, addicts to approval from people whose opinions shouldn't matter to a house plan. But you move through their world like smoke through a maze, untouchable, unpredictable, uncontrollable. You're not hiding from them. You're operating on a frequency so advanced that their primitive social radar can't detect you. But oh, they feel you, every single one of them. Here's the beautiful secret they'll never understand. When you stop competing for their attention, you automatically win. When you stop playing by their rules stop applying to you. When you stop seeking their approval, their disapproval becomes powerless. It's like watching someone try to arrest smoke, try to handcuff the wind, try to imprison a ghost. Impossible. Absolutely impossible. You've transcended their entire game by refusing to play it. They wake up every morning and put on their masks, check their appearance, practice their lines, prepare for another day of performing in the theater of social acceptance. But you wake up knowing something they've forgotten, that authenticity is the most magnetic force in the universe, that being genuinely unapologetically yourself, that operating outside their comprehension makes you more influential than all their desperate attention-seeking combined. Watch what happens when you're not trying to impress anyone, when you're not performing for approval, when you're simply existing on your own terms. They become obsessed. They start studying your moves. They begin copying your energy. They try to decode your secret, and the most delicious irony, the secret they're searching for is the absence of secrets. The strategy they're trying to steal is the lack of strategy. The performance they're trying to replicate is the complete absence of performance. You've discovered what the ancient masters knew, that true power operates in the spaces between their understanding, in the gaps between their categories, in the silence between their noise. While they're busy writing desperate posts about their lives, you're rewriting the entire script of what it means to exist without needing anyone's permission. And that makes you absolutely, undeniably, systematically unstoppable. Your absence speaks louder than their presence ever could. Now we enter the most exquisite realm of psychological warfare. You want to know what drives the human mind absolutely, completely, utterly insane? Not knowing, not understanding, not being able to put you in their little boxes with their little labels. They need to categorize everything. It's how their primitive brains cope with complexity. But you've become their beautiful nightmare, their unsolvable equation, their Rubik's Cube that changes colors every time they think they're close to solving it. And it's magnificent. Watch them spiral into obsession. They'll spend more mental energy trying to decode you than they spend on their own dreams, their own goals, their own pathetic attempts at self-improvement. You become their full-time psychological project. They'll create entire novels about who you might be, construct elaborate theories about what you want, build detailed profiles of what you're capable of. And here's the twisted beauty of it all. Every single story they create makes you more powerful. Every narrative they build gives you more influence. Every theory they develop hands you more control. Your absence becomes more magnetic than their desperate presence. When you don't show up to their little gatherings, you become the main topic of conversation. When you don't respond to their messages immediately, you occupy their thoughts for hours. When you don't seek their approval, you become infinitely more fascinating than those who beg for it. You've mastered the art that politicians spend millions trying to learn how to be unforgettable by being unavailable. They'll lie awake at night wondering what you're thinking, what you're planning, what your next move might be. They've turned you into their personal psychological thriller, and they can't stop reading. They refresh your profiles, hoping for clues. They analyze your every word, looking for hidden meanings. They study your patterns, trying to predict your behavior. And the most delicious part, the more they study you, the less they understand you. The harder they try to solve you, the more mysterious you become. Here's what's happening in their tortured minds. They're trying to write the story of you, but you keep changing the genre. One day they think you're a romance novel. The next day you're a horror story. Sometimes you're comedy. Sometimes you're drama. They can't pin you down because you refuse to be pinned. You become fluid, adaptable, unpredictable, and that unpredictability has become your greatest weapon. Their obsession with understanding you has become your most powerful form of influence. Your mystery becomes their prison. Your silence becomes their loudest sound. Your absence, you're haunted their psychology so completely that they carry you with them everywhere they go. And the most beautiful irony, you're not trying to haunt anyone. You're simply being authentically, mysteriously, unapologetically yourself. And that authenticity has become more terrifying to them than any ghost story ever written. In the movie of their life, they're the supporting actor. In the movie of your life, they don't even have a speaking role. Oh, this is where the plot gets absolutely delicious. Picture this twisted theater of the mind. They wake up every morning thinking they're the star of their own show. They rehearse their lines in the mirror. They practice their scenes in the shower. They imagine themselves as the hero, the protagonist, the center of their own epic narrative. But here's what's happening behind the curtain of their consciousness. They've unconsciously cast you as the leading role in their psychological drama. You become the character that makes everything else make sense, or not make sense at all. You're not trying to steal their spotlight. You're not auditioning for their attention. You're not even aware that their internal movie theater exists. But somehow, impossibly beautifully, you become the standard they measure every other character against. When they meet someone new, they think, are they as interesting as... When they make a decision, they wonder, what would someone with that kind of presence do? You've become their psychological measuring stick, their internal compass, their benchmark for what authenticity actually looks like. Here's the twisted psychology at work. While they're desperately trying to be the hero of their own story, you've become the plot twist they never saw coming, the character that makes them question their entire storyline, the presence that forces them to rewrite their understanding of what power, confidence, and influence actually mean. They thought they knew who they were until you walked into their world, and now they're not sure of anything anymore. You've become the mirror that shows them everything they're not. Watch what happens when you're around. Suddenly, everyone else becomes more animated, more performative, more desperate to be noticed. They're all competing for screen time in a movie where you're not even trying to be the star. You're just existing, breathing your own air, living in your own reality. And that natural, effortless authenticity makes everyone else look like amateur actors in a tonsuster, community theater production of their own lives. The beautiful irony that's driving them absolutely mad. The less you try to be their main character, the more you become exactly that. The less you seek their attention, the more you occupy their thoughts. The less you perform for their approval, the more they find themselves performing for yours. Even when you're not watching, you become the absent protagonist of their psychological screenplay, and they can't stop writing scenes with you in them. You don't need to audition for a role in their life because they're already rewriting their entire script around you. They're already casting supporting characters based on how they think you'd react. They're already directing their own performance based on an audience of one you. And the most twisted part, you're not even in the theater. You're living your own movie, in your own reality, completely unaware that you've become the star of theirs. They're listening to AIM radio while you're broadcasting in dimensions they can't even perceive. Listen, do you hear that static? That's the sound of their primitive receivers trying to tune into your signal. They're all operating on the same tired frequency, AM radio playing the same 3 songs over and over, seeking validation, fearing rejection, playing the same exhausting games their parents played, their grandparents played, their entire bloodline has been playing since the dawn of social hierarchy. But you've discovered something that makes their entire radio station obsolete. You've tuned in to a frequency that doesn't even exist on their dial. You're broadcasting in dimensions they can't perceive, but ooh, they feel it. Like a dog hearing a whistle pitched too high for human ears. They sense something happening that their conscious mind can't quite grasp. It's in the way they lean forward when you speak, the way they fall silent when you enter a room, the way they suddenly become hyper-aware of their own breathing, their own heartbeat, their own inadequacy. You're operating on a wavelength that's simultaneously too sophisticated and too primal for their conventional understanding. They spend their entire lives trying to crack the code of social acceptance, learning the rules, memorizing the scripts, perfecting the performance. But you've transcended their entire game by playing a completely different one. While they're busy adjusting their antennas, trying to receive approval from others, you've become your own broadcasting station, your own source of signal, your own frequency generator. And that self-sufficiency, that independence from their network. Watch what happens when you stop trying to be understood. When you stop translating yourself into their limited vocabulary. When you stop dumbing down your signal to match their reception capabilities. Suddenly you become infinitely more interesting, more magnetic, more unforgettable. Because the human mind is hardwired to obsess over mysteries it can't solve, and you've become the most beautiful mystery they've ever encountered. They'll spend years trying to figure out your frequency, buying better equipment, upgrading their receivers, consulting experts, reading books, taking courses, all in a desperate attempt to tune into whatever station you're broadcasting from. But here's the delicious secret they'll never discover. Your frequency isn't something you learned or acquired. It's something you remembered. Something you always had, but forgot you had permission to use. You're not trying to be different. You're not performing uniqueness. You're not broadcasting weirdness for the sake of standing out. You're simply operating at your natural frequency. And your natural frequency is so authentic, so genuine, so purely you, that it makes everyone else's manufactured personality sound like static, like white noise, like the desperate crackling of broken radios trying to pick up a signal from another dimension and type.